It's a Bee Gees morning, staying alive. We're streaming audio online all over the nation. www.onecast.in, numeral 1cast.in, 94.3 on the FM band on your radio sets right here in Mumbai City. Only if you're not driving. Stat-free warning. You're in the backseat of a radio taxi, backseat of a chauffeur-driven car, at home, at work. You want to stream some video live. We are Facebook Live as we speak. Facebook.com/radio1.mum. One of the most exceptional writers of our time is in studio, Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi. I've just finished reading The Rabbit and the Squirrel. It's absolutely delightful. I highly advocate you pick it up from any online or on-ground store. And I'm going to be in conversation with him through the course of the hour.
94.3.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Wonderful to meet you for the very first time. How are you doing?
I'm great. The question that I need to get out of the way, is there a bar on the premises?
Not as yet, my friend. Not as yet. But there's an idea in there already.
I have some in my back of my boot. I'll make sure everyone comes on time tomorrow. I'll be here at 8:30 with a stall out there.
The last song of Dusk, at the time when it came out, it stunned the literary world. And might I add, justifiably so, because, your command over language was almost poetic, even though it was fiction. And then your second book, which I unfortunately haven't read, came soon after. But then there's been an enormous gap before The Rabbit and the Squirrel, almost a decade. Why so, pray?
I think because I've learned that I like to take great pleasure in life. My mother was disabled. And so in spite of having numerous privileges available to her, she was bedbound. We never did any family holidays. So I understood that what I wanted very much to do was to be able to inhabit life, to enjoy experience, to live all of it, to do work, but principally to be able to enjoy life when one can. And for me, a lot of that entailed just being alone, being solitary, being on the beach. And if that was such a simple way to be present to life and to its mysteries and to its wonderment, I thought I should do it. And so that's what I was doing. I was living for 9 years, and the book is just a byproduct of that.
But you did say off the mic that, let me say it myself, you moved to Goa. Mm-hmm. And if you had gone there without a clear goal or a focus in mind, you were in fear of becoming a beach bum, which happens to a few people. But there was a definite goal to move there. And what was that goal?
Rishi, I think what you were trying to say, which you edited out, was that I would become an alcoholic if I moved to Goa. And I think you're 10 years too late for that. Yeah, I think that if you don't have a focus, as it is with anything, and it doesn't matter where you live, but if you don't have a singular-minded passion, I think for so many years, it was running an arts foundation. So we were doing shows, we had festivals, we had, some major museum-level artists coming and showing. But as I say, all of that was the stuff that kept me on the saddle. But the stuff that kept me alive were different things. Those you can't measure. I think Arianna Huffington talks about this when she says that we need to have a third metric to define success. And what is that? And how is that without public signifiers of success? Fame, money, wealth, a job, status. So I think that is what is a space that I was trying to aspire to. What happens when you want to set aside all of the public notifications that define you as successful.
Well, what has happened is your finest work to date. Would you agree? Would you think so?
It's a book that has been so loved. And you can feel it. I go on social media and all these people send me these incredible messages. And in fact, it is a book that I wrote for my readers. It is a book that I wrote with the love that they had sent me over the last 9 years of my silence. And this is just a way of saying thank you for that faith and conviction. But yes, you're right. It is a book that has found tremendous love.
Social media, meaning you're only on Facebook?
Well, yeah, I think that's enough. Or maybe too much.
Correct, considering the life you've been living. We're back in a couple of minutes. A UB40 classic call. I can't help falling in love with you. And I'm going to dive straight into The Rabbit and the Squirrel. Some trivia for you guys. Actually, an Elvis Presley song redone in reggae style by UB40. Can't help falling in love. Well, you will not help falling in love with this one. It's The Rabbit and the Squirrel, a love story about friendship. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi, illustrated by, and I'm going to get the pronunciation right now from him. More conversation with the author.
94.3.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Scandinavian names and their pronunciation. Your friend is?
Stina Version. She's a star.
That's fair enough. Stina Versen. And her husband and she are dear friends.
That's right.
And you've had quite a few experiences in their apartment. You were locked out once. Would you care to tell us the story?
So last year, I was house sitting for them while they were in Portugal. And this was at their house in Stockholm. And I come back home from dinner one evening, and the key to the apartment door refuses to work. So a very kind neighbor calls in a locksmith who looks so profoundly incompetent. I just wanted to get on a flight and come back to Bombay. And I was right, because, after 1 hour of fiddling with the door and not being able to figure it out, the man brings out a blowtorch and raises the door, or at least a part of the door, to be able to enter it. So at this point of time, I've turned into the nightmare guest, the house guest from hell. You let someone stay and then they burn down your front door. That was me in Stockholm. So when my friends Tina and Pompey came back...
But didn't they call the cops? Did the neighbors say somebody was trying to break in?
So I think that they looked at me and they thought I was like trying to break into the house or something. But no, they didn't, because one of the other neighbors called the locksmith. So they were like, okay, unless even the neighbors are in on this Indian guy from Goa coming to break into someone's house.
And they come back.
Then they come back and their faces kind of drop, because they've never seen their door like this, reduced to like a fraction of what it was. And I just turned to Stina. I said, Stina, can I tell you a story? And that was the only thing I really knew, was just to sort of enter the narrative with another narrative. And I had this book which I had written for a friend many years ago. And I read it to her, and she just had tears in her eyes, and she leaned forward and she said, Siddharth, can I illustrate this book for you? And now she's one of Sweden's most important, most beautiful, most talented illustrators and children's book writers. So it was a great honor. I said yes blindly, because at that point of time I was simply trying to placate them. I was simply trying to make sure they wouldn't throw me out of the apartment block. I was like, whatever you want, We turn a pole dancer, do a stripper service for you. I'll do whatever you want. Just, and yeah, so then...
And what an incredible job she's done. I mean, she's used a bit of watercolor.
Yeah.
And you really feel those characters. They pop out, full of life out of the pages of this book of yours. And I'm given to understand the partner is the art director.
Yeah, so we decided to keep it a completely, family setup, just the three of us. And he directed the art for the book, so he designed it. And Penguin Random House publishes it with so much love. I had the world's best publisher in Himali Sodhi. She's just an absolute lion of the letters.
And you, my friend, are a firm believer that friendship is more exalted than love could ever be. It's so obvious from your writing, isn't it? Talk me through that.
Well, when I didn't know better, when I was in my 20s and 30s, and and love affairs seemed so much more interesting. And of course, when you're in love, the atmosphere is a little heightened. You live in rarefied light. The colors are denser. The flavors are richer. You can drink at 9 a.m. and you'll never be hungover. But with friendship, there's a fundamental equality, which is not always present in a romantic alliance. And one of the things that I've learned to define myself the older I grow is by watching how much failure I have escaped that my friends have not. And by that, I mean married life or being partnered, because I know so many people whose marriages have just come undone, who've had such awful, awful marriages, and very quickly, that I feel very lucky that I am single, and that the most animating, most principal emotional structure in my life is friendship, because it keeps me alive.
Yeah, which is why the byline or the tagline is The Rabbit and the Squirrel, a love story about friendship. What we're going to do is we're going to take some messages and come back in just a bit. Do you have any comments? If you've read any of Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi's previous novellas, please feel free to tell us. If you just have any comment on this interview, I'm happy to read it out on air. 99677-43943. That's the WhatsApp number. It's easy to remember. The last three digits are our frequency, 94.3. So 99677-43943. On Twitter as well as Facebook, you go to the search bar, you type HRISHIKAY. I'll pop up. You could tweet out with your name, post on the timeline inbox with your name, facebook.com/radio1.mum. See you in a bit.
94.3
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Welcome back. We're still streaming audio online all over the nation. www.onecast.in, numeral 1cast.in, 94.3 on the FM band on your radio sets right here in Mumbai City. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi is in studio. Is The Rabbit and the Squirrel is an absolute must-buy. So beautiful this is. And the fable as a form is something that is so childlike. And to be childlike is your preferred way of life as opposed to being adult-like. Talk me through that.
I think I'd be such a failure at being an adult. But also that I think when you refine adulthood, the quality that you're left with is wonderment, which is what your childhood was distinguished by, your living in curiosity for the world around you. And some of the most important books in my life have been fables. The Little Mermaid, the Beauty and the Beast. These were books that I grew up with. So I tend to remember and go back to the simplicity and the wisdom of that form. And how lucky for me that I had Stina partnering me and bringing this story, completely alive with her illustrations.
The Rabbit and the Squirrel as a tale, it is so simple but yet so deep if you look for the kind of layers that it has. Without giving too much of the story away, here is the rabbit, and rabbits are notorious about their philandering, so to say. And the squirrel, it's almost as though they're meant to be together, but they're not together. And life throws them together at a precarious point in their life. And in between, their journeys are at tangents. Here's the rabbit who's gone into a monastery. She goes and gets married to this crude boar. Can't even bear to the thought of having children with the boar. And in a lot of ways, it's the story of loss. And I'm given to understand you lost a friend, or at least you don't know where she is now. Is that where this all started?
Well, I don't know where she is now. I hope she's in a good place, but it was for this friend that I wrote the book. But I'd like to go back to the book and speak about the rabbit and the squirrel as two characters independent of my life, and with absolutely no shadow of my life on this book. It's a story about how you can be perfect for each other, but life does not allow for that. Life doesn't make room for that beautiful coincidence of two hearts finding time to spend together. And then when they are reunited, what happens is this idea of reconciliation, of what does it mean to be able to enjoy someone in a very short span that you get. And now I don't think in terms of short span or long span, or whether you have somebody for 20 years in your life or 30 years, but how beautiful that span was. And I think that's been the most animating part of the book and of the lives of the rabbit and the squirrel. How did they derive joy in each other's company, and if you can run with that, to me it's magic.
It is. And also because they always tell you, there is a school of thought that says, get married to your friend. And here you're turning around and saying that even marriage to your friend might not happen. So it's all about, and you almost coin it, you coin it with the word fun.
Yeah.
But fun doesn't literally mean going out and having a ball and having a party, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I don't mean fun in the frivolous sense of, being drunk and passing out. I mean fun in a sense of when you are alive to life's questions most. And the people who can bear witness to that kind of journeying, to that kind of questing with you. To me, that's the role of a friendship, of someone who watches life with you and then makes it come alive because of their profound gift of listening that they offer you.
Absolutely. MC Hammer, Can't Touch This. Back in a couple of minutes with Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi. Don't go anywhere. Hammer time. You Can't Touch This. The Rabbit and the Squirrel and more with Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi. He's my guest of the day. More conversation.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishikesh.
Yeah, I fished out The Last Song of Dusk, which is your debut book, which actually stunned the literary world. I said that at the top of the show. Also because for all of us Salman Rushdie fans, we immediately said, my God, this is magic realism. I mean, he has his own voice, which is distinctly Indian. And Did you hear that a lot initially? And it is a compliment, isn't it? I mean, this is Salman Rushdie, yeah?
It's a huge compliment, and I'm entirely undeserving of it. But that didn't stop me from appropriating it every time somebody said it, and thank you for saying it.
When you look back at that particular book, is it another Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi? Considering you've changed so much.
Yeah, but it's also a book that gave me personhood. You know, sometimes I'm very, very ungrateful about the form, the book, and I say, 10,000 people will read this book, and there'll be like, a YouTube video about a kitten doing cartwheels, and like 42 million people are going to watch that. And then I think of everything in my life, and it happened because I wrote The Last Song of Dusk. I'm here today because you read that book and decided to invite me, 15 years later. So everything in my life, everything that gave me personhood, that gave me passport into adult society, happened because of The Last Song of Dusk.
It's interesting you would say that. And do you still hold those characters very close to your heart, or you will let them go? I'm talking about the family. I mean, here's the doctor, here's the woman who's gifted with song, the child, the entire family. It's really one of those things, those stories that you look back at and you still get goosebumps.
Well, remember, there's a character called Nandini Hariharan who goes to a party, and this fashion designer who's quite besotted with, "Madam, are you a star?" And she sort of, throws her head back and has a dusky laughter, and she says, "No, my darling, I am an entire constellation." So yes, and actually it's Nandini's life that has in some very bizarre way mirrored my own, because she goes off and lives in Mathuran. Then she went off from there and she moves to Paris, which is what I've been doing a lot in the last few years, been spending a lot of time in France. So I never knew that, writing would be an act of forecasting one's life, and that you can inhabit, different trajectories, different tributaries of your own fate through the lives of your characters.
So here you're living this wonderful life when you feel like the idyllic village life. You're in Goa, and then you go to Madrid, and you go to Paris, and what is it that you enjoy most about Paris, Madrid, and Goa? You've got to give me your one-liners for all three cities.
With Paris, it's always about the clothes. Don't kid yourself for a moment. When you step out in the 7th and you have a fantastic jacket, it is a society that will pay attention to that. And by extension, I mean the sophistication and of that civilization that comes with it, with its love for literature, with its love for fashion, with its love for art. With Madrid, with Spain, it's the energy, the Spanish, the food, my God. But with Goa in particular, it's, in some senses, it has been so far antithetical to everything that big cities stand for, which is greed, which is noise, which is cultural pollution. And Goa has been this little enclave that celebrates the opposite of all of that.
Pussycat Dolls, wait a minute, back with Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi right after this.
94.3. This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Welcome back. Siddharth Dhanvant Shanghvi's brilliance is amplified by a new fable called The Rabbit and the Squirrel. It's out, and I highly advocate you go and get it. And this is the last leg of conversation with him. So, how's the photography going? And how much has the photography helped you write?
Photography is slow, but it's something that stays with me as a way to document the life around me. And what it's taught me is to think in pictures. I think Ansel Adams was right when he said that you don't take a photograph, you make one, and by which he means that you imagine it very clearly in your head and then encounter it outside. And I think that a lot of the writing process is like that. But I think this book I came to because of 7 years of curation, learning what to leave out. And how much to edit, how much to cull out, because I know that with The Last Song of Dusk there was so much excess. I was 22 when I wrote it, and that I had very few people cracking a whip and editing. So here I was very lucky that 7 years of curation gave me that. It allowed me to think of what to leave behind.
Well, the operative word is fun, and you've been having a lot of fun.
Always.
You have friends in higher places. Salman Rushdie, and I said this to you off the mic, was one of my most exceptional guests on the show, simply because of his sense of humor, his wit, his repartee. And you spent an evening out with Salman that has gone down in the history books, if not the history books, at least the paparazzi books.
Well, the story goes, Parmeshwar Godrej had hosted a dinner for him. We were all working on an essay for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for a book called AIDS Sutra, and we were having dinner. And it was one of those very fantastic Parmeshwar Godrej dinners on our beach house in Juhu. And at like 12:30, I get a call from a friend who says, "Look, I've got DJ Raveen from like Buddha Bar, and he's playing at my nightclub. Do you want to come?" And at this point of time, you'd seen like all of Bollywood royalty make jackasses of themselves in front of. So he was just a bit bored. And at 12 o'clock, I just said to someone, I said, like I'm going to scoot, I'm going. And he was like, "Where are you off to?" And I said, there's a nightclub. And he was like, can we all come? And I was like, sure. So it was Parmeshwar Godrej, Salman Rushdie, and a few other friends. And it kind of broken up with Padma Lakshmi. And so a friend of mine hooked him up with Riya Sen. And the next day, it was like on the front pages of all the papers of how Salman Rushdie had gone out night clubbing. And of course, there was a new ban on him that an ulema in Lucknow had decided to declare. So I think I got him into a little bit of trouble, but he's been very forgiving of me and extremely indulgent. He's a good friend.
And Carrie Kennedy, you took her out dancing in Goa.
Well, it was at a friend's house, and I was dispatched to look after Carrie Kennedy, the daughter of Bobby Kennedy, and she was a lot of fun. I didn't know what to do really, so I just said, "Let me get her as many martinis as possible," and I did. And then I think she said, like, "Can you teach me Bollywood dancing?" And I was like, "Sure." And of course, I know nothing about Bollywood dancing, and neither does she. So we decided to do Bollywood dancing, and then she's loving it, and she's knocking the martinis back. And at one point, I kind of stepped back because I'm like
Sure.
busted, and then I see her just fall. It's not like, she's taken a stumble on the dance floor doing Bollywood dancing. She just falls right back. And I thought to myself, oh my God, one more Kennedy is dead and it's my fault. As it turned out, she'd slipped or whatever. But she was such a trooper, and she'd been an athlete at university, that within 30 seconds she was up and she was dancing. And then that's when you see that this is what the Kennedys are about. They can take a lot of trouble on the chin and then keep dancing.
Listen, this has been so much fun. Have yourself a wonderful day, and keep doing this, stuff like the rabbit and the squirrel. How wonderful it is. Guys, go get a copy. Thank you, Siddharth.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cardi B, J Balvin, I like it.